Hi, I'm Amy. I'm the director and founder of Cornwall Yoga Centre. I just wanted to do a couple of little videos to give some information about one of my great passions, which is the philosophy that underpins yoga. I find it absolutely fascinating. I've been studying it for many years, and it's something that people ask me about all the time. We don't always have time to kind of explain it or get any kind of depth of understanding, so we thought we'd do a little series of videos. So first of all, this video is going to be an introduction to the Yoga Sutras. It's a series of philosophical chapters. It's presented in Sanskrit, which is an ancient language, which isn't spoken, but it's part of the rich undercurrent of all modern languages. So very much like Latin, it's not used in daily conversation in India, but it is the language of most of the philosophical texts. So the Yoga Sutras are presented kind of in a shorthand, so it's very abbreviated, which means that it's extremely dense. There's a lot of information in not very many words, and this is one of the things that's fascinating about it, because you have to kind of dig to get the richness out of the earth of the Yoga Sutras. And that requires instructions. You need a teacher. There are loads of books. Many of them have slightly different nuance of interpretation. I've sort of studied a few of them, and I've also had a really fantastic opportunity to study for a really long time in great detail the richness of these texts, and I just thought I'd start to share a little bit of that information in these videos. Yoga Sutras are probably dating back to somewhere around about the same time that Buddhism came on the scene in northern India. It's not necessarily completely contemporary, it might be a little bit more modern. Most people think nowadays that Buddhism slightly preceded Yoga Sutras in its creation and formal sort of presentation. So in terms of the history of yoga philosophy, as we said, I think it's about 2,000 years old, and it's been really influential throughout the entire period since it was formalised. And it's been interpreted in many different ways, but the content of it has never changed. So I think a lot of the differences in interpretation have been due to this very dense, concise manner of its presentation, which leaves the reader to learn from the teacher. So studying Sanskrit has been something that I've really enjoyed doing, because the words are multifaceted, I think is a really good way to say it. There's lots of rich understanding. It's a little bit like studying poetry. When you think about how, if you may have studied poetry at school, you can take a line of a poem and sort of look at different layers of meaning within that single line. Studying the Yoga Sutras is very much like that. In fact, it's exactly like that. So we've been looking with my teachers at the etymology, the meaning of the words. We've been looking at what the most ancient, original interpreters of the text, the ones that were written down, that is. So we can only really study old stuff if it's been written down. And we've spent quite a lot of time sort of digging into some of these details, looking at the cultural differences between how the Yoga Sutras were presented 2,000 years ago. The world was a very different place. And also trying to get some meaning that is completely relevant to where we are now. This is a living text. It's a vibrant philosophy that still has a lot to offer to the modern world. If we don't reinterpret it for modern life, then some of its depths can be a little bit confusing. So I think it does need to be reinterpreted sometimes. Old philosophies don't have to be taken in the context of the historical period in which they were created, some of the truth is still relevant for us today. So we're going to have a little bit of a look at this over the next series of videos. I hope you'll be as fascinated with the philosophy as I am. So come with us and we'll sort of dig in to chapter 1, chapter 2 and see what happens.